Starting at the top, the first two tabs are Recent and Saved. This section displays all the templates that you've used recently and the ones that you've downloaded and saved. Each template thumbnail shows the dimensions of the document and a name if you've chosen one from the preset templates, such as postcard, for example. Any non-preset documents will display Custom as their name. On the right side of the divider line are a series of document preset options to choose from. They're grouped by type of design work. If you click on Mobile, for example, you can see the number 12 next to the blank document presets header. This means there are 12 options. Simply click on View All Presets to see all of them. Document presets can be very useful if you design for multiple devices and don't want to have to remember the screen size for each device. If you click on the different options, notice how the width and height values change on the right. Now, if you scroll down, you'll see a variety of free templates. Select one and See Preview, click See Preview on the right. The preview comes with some additional information, including the size of the file. If you like what you see, you can click the blue Download button at the bottom, or to go back, you can either click Close Preview, or you can click the Back button in the top left-hand corner of the window. If you click Download, you'll find the template under the Saved tab, like I have here. Next, click on the Web tab. Here again, you find the same mix of preset document options and templates. If you look at the right side of the window, notice how the measurements are set to pixels and the color mode is set to RGB. We'll talk a lot more about color in the Creating and Using Colors section of this course, but I want you to see how Illustrator helps you make choices right at the beginning when you're creating a new document. Since web design involves creating work for screens, Illustrator has automatically set the color mode to RGB, which is the system used to represent color on screens, and measurements to pixels, because that is how size is determined on screens. If you click on the Print tab, the color mode switches to CMYK and the measurements to points. CMYK is a system that creates color for printing purposes, and points are a type of measurement that can be used for typesetting and design. Points are chosen because they represent the smallest unit, which allows you great precision, but if you feel more comfortable working in picas, inches, centimeters, or millimeters, simply change the unit in the drop-down menu. Now, if you click on the Film and Video tab, you'll see that we're back to pixels and RGB, because we're designing for the screen, and then if you click on Art and Illustration, we're back to points, but in this case, the color mode is RGB. The color mode in this case will depend on the purpose of your artwork. If you're designing exclusively for the screen, then leave it as is. If you're designing something that will ultimately be printed, then switch to CMYK using the drop-down menu. As I said, we'll look at color in a lot more detail later on in this course. Now let's have a closer look at the Preset Details section of the New Document dialog box. At the top is where you can give your new document a name. Starting in Section 4 of this course, we're going to begin creating a series of postcards. The design and creation of the postcards will allow you to learn how to use the many tools and features that Illustrator has to offer. In this section, we're going to set up our document for that purpose. Simply click and type Postcards. You could use the blank postcard document preset on the side here, or choose values in the width and height that are different than the preset option. In this case, I want to change the values to 105 by 148 millimeters, which is the standard size for international postcards. First, I'm going to select millimeters from the drop-down menu, and then I can enter the values manually. So we said 105 by 148 millimeters. You can also choose the orientation depending on what you plan to design. We just talked about the color mode. In this case, we're going to switch it to CMYK because our postcards will be printed. When I do this, a warning sign appears. If you hover over it, it says there's a discrepancy between what you chose and what you'll find when you open the document. Don't worry too much about this. You can fix that when the document is open. Now, just above it are bleed marks. Bleed marks are useful when you're designing for printing purposes. They allow you to extend your design outside the edges of your document, creating a safety margin to ensure that you don't end up with white borders. Just like in other Adobe applications, the link icon allows you to enter a value once and it gets copied to the other sides. I'm going to choose a standard bleed value of 3, and by using the arrow, I'm going to enter it. And as you can see, all the 4 sides are now showing a value of 3. Now, click on More Settings to see additional options. First, notice how all the things that we already selected have been transferred to this dialog box. The Profile drop-down menu lists all the preset options, but because we entered a value that was different than the preset, it's considered a custom size. I want to talk about 2 settings. First, at the bottom, if you don't see the advanced settings, click on the arrow to open them. We see that the color mode is set to CMYK just as we chose, and then there's the raster effect drop-down menu. This value controls the resolution of raster effects, which are effects applied to objects in your artwork that are rendered in pixels, like drop shadows, for example. This is also something you can modify when your document is open, so I'm just going to leave it as is for now. Now let's have a closer look at the Artboards section. You can choose the number of artboards using the up and down arrows or by changing the value in the field manually. As soon as you select more than one, the options become active. Right next to the number of artboards field is a series of choices to organize your artboards as a grid or by rows and columns. When you choose a grid pattern, you also have the option of choosing the number of columns or rows in addition to the spacing between each artboard. I want to create 4 artboards, and I'm going to organize them in a grid by row. I'm going to select 2 columns, and I'm going to change the spacing to 25 millimeters between each artboard. When you're satisfied with all the measurements and options, you can click Create Document. You now have a document with the number of artboards you selected arranged in the way you chose. If you look at the Title tab, you'll see that it says Postcard, CMYK, and informs you that you're looking at your document at 94% of its full size. We'll look at navigation and preview options later on in this section. You can also see a red line around each artboard. That's your bleed margin. Next, we're going to open the Artboards panel by clicking on it in the panel dock. If you don't see the panel in the dock, you can go into Window and open it by clicking on Artboards. As you can see, Illustrator automatically created distinct artboards for you based on your selections in the New Document dialog box. To rename the artboards, simply double-click on the name and type. For now, let's rename them postcards 1 to 4. You can also reorder the artboards by clicking on one and to select it and dragging it to where you want it to be until a blue line appears and then letting go. I entered the names wrong on purpose to show you. So I'm going to click on postcard 4 and drag it to the bottom. As you can see, there's a blue line and I let go. On the right is a column with small document icons. When you click on one of these, you can open the Artboard Options dialog box for that particular artboard, where you can edit some of its attributes. I'm going to cancel for now. Now at the bottom of the panel are additional options such as Delete Artboard, New Artboard, and Move Down and Up arrows, which is another method to reorder your artboards. To effect an artboard using these shortcuts, you first have to select it, and then you can click the shortcut. So, for example, to delete an artboard, you would click on it, and then you would press the trash can icon, which is the Delete Artboard shortcut at the bottom. Finally, just like with other panels, this one has a menu in the top right to access even more options. After that, it's pretty simple. If you want to add objects to an artboard, you can simply select it in the panel and then add any elements you want. But before we do that, we're going to look at another important step, which is the creation of layers.